So you get drafted right in the first round, and then you say, well, I'll go through the minor leagues, and then I'll make it to the majors at some point, hopefully soon. Hopefully soon is a couple months later for young Garrett Crochet, 21 years old, the left-hander with the fastball and the wipeout slider, who comes out of the University of Tennessee to the Chicago White Sox. 11th overall, 2020 draft.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Just Say Guay. I'm your host, George Guay. Today, I'm joined by Garrett Crochet, who is a pitcher for the Chicago White Sox. Garrett, thanks for coming on the show.
No problem, George. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so I know a lot's happened recently. Shut down at the college level. You get drafted. You play in a historic type rookie season. How's it been?
It's been exciting. Overwhelming, I feel like wouldn't be a big enough word to describe it. Just from the point of when the college season got shut down, my hopes were pretty much crushed. I felt like we had an Omaha-like team. And then from there, I kind of just prepared for the draft, kind of expecting there to be a showcase or some sort of event maybe. So I never really shut myself down per se. And luckily I got the chance to go to the alternate site, and I had been preparing for, like I said, for there to be a showcase of some sort. So I was pretty ready when I got there. My arm was feeling good. And luckily, I had some success while I was there, and coaches thought pretty highly of me, I guess. And they gave me the call.
Yeah, lots happened and definitely worked out for the best. So before we get into what's happened, can we backtrack a bit? Can you tell us where you're from and, what the baseball culture was where you grew up?
For sure. So I'm originally from Ocean Springs, Mississippi. High school baseball, I feel like in Mississippi really isn't as talented as it is in other places. So I never really kind of chalked myself up to be a good baseball player per se. And I was a late bloomer, so I was never really like a standout candidate for somebody like if people were on the outside looking in, maybe to think that I would make it to where I have today. But yeah, no, baseball was pretty big for me. It was pretty big for my brother, and that's kind of what got me into playing. And it's kind of the reason that I still play today.
Yeah, so it seems like with a lot of sports in the SEC and college sports, there's a lot of state pride. A lot of people want to play for, the team that they grew up watching college-wise. You end up choosing Tennessee. What made you choose Tennessee?
So I actually didn't receive any in-state offers. Kind of like I said, I was a late bloomer. I didn't hit. I guess I feel like as a pitcher, hitting 90 miles an hour is kind of a staple in the recruitment process. And I didn't do that until after I graduated. And so everybody was kind of late getting to me and me receiving offers. And it just kind of worked out that way. I had about 2 major offers, I would say, with Tennessee and University of Texas, and wound up choosing Tennessee to kind of get a chance to crack back at those in-state teams that didn't offer me, like Mississippi State and Ole Miss.
Yeah, it is interesting. You had a motivational factor. So you were drafted by the Brewers in 2017. I've always wanted to learn this. How does one become eligible for another draft?
It's not really as difficult, I guess, as you would think it would be. Like pretty much after they drafted me and I had chosen to forego that process, all I had to do was pretty much sign a form, pretty much saying that like the Brewers could draft me again or another team would draft me again, kind of just saying that they don't have any rights to me, I guess.
Okay, so I got to ask, you're in the SEC, great bats you face every game. How hard was that? And they probably prepared you for the pros, right?
Yeah, no, it was definitely difficult. If you look at my stats, they weren't good stats, but I also wasn't really, I'm a lot different of a pitcher now than I was back then. But yeah, the bats were incredible, facing first round talent pretty much every weekend, facing guys like JJ Bleday and Austin Martin. Kind of like you said, yeah, it's pretty difficult, pretty challenging task, but definitely something that I welcomed with open arms, and definitely kind of helped me get to where I am, just facing that elite talent day in and day out.
Yeah, and that also led you to get invited to a Team USA camp while in college. What was that like?
That was awesome. I only went to the trials. I didn't actually join the team, but it was pretty nice just to be able to measure myself up against those players. Kind of like I said, I was never really a highly recruited prospect, so getting that invite was pretty big for my confidence. Kind of just seeing myself measure up against these guys that I've heard all this hype around and that I've seen like compete day in and day out in the NCAA, whether it be the SEC or other conferences. I knew that these guys were high quality players, and I was definitely excited to go and, like I said, see how I measured up against them.
So, obviously COVID comes, you have the shutdown. Like you said, you guys felt like you had an Omaha type team. How did COVID affect your draft process?
Well, I was injured to start the spring, so I wound up only making one start. I think I threw like 3 1/3 innings. So I really didn't get a full chance to showcase myself. And kind of backtracking to earlier, like I said, my stats weren't very good, but I think that my junior year I was going to tell a different story because I was a completely different pitcher. I had some newfound velocity, and I had tweaked a little bit of things mechanically, and I felt like I was definitely going to be competing at a higher level that year. But I mean, I'd like to think that it all worked out the way that it should have. I mean, got a pretty good chance with the White Sox, and an organization that trusts and believes in me. And I like to think it all worked out for the better.
Definitely has worked out so far. So what was it like when you finally heard your name called on that day?
Oh, it was awesome. Kind of, I guess, because of COVID, I wasn't really sure where a lot of teams had me on their boards. The White Sox were actually the first team that I believed had the chance to take me. So kind of that was when I really started paying attention to the TV screen. Other than that, I wasn't really watching. I was kind of trying to keep my mind away from it. But when I heard my name called, I mean, it was unreal. I had my family there and a bunch of my teammates and coaches with me, and just a good experience overall.
Yeah, definitely a moment you'll remember forever. So even with all that's happened with COVID, you had your injury. What was it like to finally make it out on the major leagues mound the first time?
It was crazy. I mean, looking back on it, it's almost kind of tough to remember what it felt like, just because I had so many emotions going through my head, and like I said earlier, it was just overwhelming in a way. But kind of was able to channel myself in there, kind of able to focus in and just trust kind of what I had done at the alternate site, what I had done building up to that, and pretty much what I've done my entire career preparation wise had gotten me to that point, and I kind of just trusted that and had success, thankfully, and had a clean inning. So I was able to kind of go to bed that night pretty easily. But I mean, it was an unreal experience. Definitely something that I wouldn't have pictured a few years ago.
Yeah, it's awesome that you made it happen and a successful night to build upon. So baseball, there's a lot of history. You know that. It's probably the most historic sport in terms of all the stats and who did what first. What did it feel like to be the first one from your draft class to make it to the pros? And it said also that you were the first one to skip the minors since 2010. So 10 years, that must have felt pretty good, right?
Yeah, no, it definitely felt pretty good. I feel like I almost don't really give myself enough credit, though, with there being no fans and kind of with the way that the year went. I feel like I kind of had an opportunity that maybe not a lot of previous draft classes have had. I definitely feel like I'm lucky to have that experience and lucky to be put in that situation, because I definitely feel like if it wasn't COVID, I mean, who knows what could have happened, but definitely pretty unreal to actually, when you say it, I almost can't believe it, that I was the first in the draft class. And it's definitely a pretty cool feeling.
For sure. So obviously in college, I'm sure there were a lot of rivalries, especially in the SEC. It's a top college league for
Yeah.
College baseball. What was it like to be a part of the Cubs White Sox rivalry that's across town? I mean, did you really have to experience a few games to feel what it was like?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like because the fans weren't there, I really didn't get the full experience. But I mean, there were some heated times. In one of the games, Wilson Contreras threw his bat like 30 feet in the air, and then he wound up getting hit by one of our relief pitchers, and kind of started some chatter from there. But I feel like I didn't really fully get to grasp the rivalry, but you could definitely feel that there was some tension once we showed up to the ballpark that day.
Yeah, for sure. It's a very historic rivalry, and I'm sure once fans come back, you'll experience it even more. So, what do you want to accomplish as a pitcher before the next? You guys all come together as a team for training for the next season.
Pretty much just getting back healthy. That's really, I guess, the only thing that I'm focused on right now. Getting ready come February or come March. That my arms feeling good and that my body's feeling good. Kind of want to put a little bit more weight on too, just kind of get back kind of in the higher 220s, maybe 230, and just so that I'm feeling strong. And that way, once the season kind of kicks off, like I don't really have to worry about my weight fluctuating, just because that's typically how it goes during the season. I mean, especially 162 games. I mean, it's kind of tough to keep the calorie intake as normal as you would during the off season. So kind of just want to give myself a good base.
That's a good answer. So one thing I'm curious about is, have they been telling you guys to prepare to be ready in March, even though this was a shortened season?
To be honest, I haven't really heard much. I mean, that's kind of what I'm preparing for. I just want to be ready for whenever they say that we're going to need to be ready. But just kind of following what the training staff tells me to do. I'm here in Arizona right now and starting my throwing program up here soon, and just kind of trying to stay ready and get ready as slow but as quick as possible at the same time. Right now, there's really no rush, but come January, I imagine I'll be heating it up pretty good there.
Sounds like a good plan. So we saw your teammate Jose Abreu won the MVP award tonight for the American League.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that? And maybe something that people don't see on television about him that makes him such a special player and person.
Yeah, so I was only with the big league club for probably 2.5, 3 weeks. And actually, that was probably the moment when I realized, like, hey, I'm in the big leagues, is when I shook Jose Abreu's hand. And he couldn't have been a more genuinely nice guy. Like, I feel like there's a bit of a barrier, just him being non-American. But he definitely communicated with me, and I feel like we had a pretty good relationship. I don't really know much about Jose, but what I do know is that he's an incredibly hard worker and just a great human on and off the field.
Yeah, it's definitely paid off. So last question. I want to know your answer about this because you're a pitcher. We saw what happened in the World Series with Blake Snell, how analytics a lot of the time in baseball is really taking over, especially on the pitchers. And, you and I are very young, and we've seen kind of the change of that process. What were your thoughts when you saw that, and did that worry you as a pitcher that maybe could happen from time to time?
I wouldn't say it particularly worried me. I definitely think that when a guy's grooving like that, I mean, you don't take the ball out of his hand. But I mean, I feel like there was a lot going on there that maybe you and I wouldn't have been able to see, or maybe some numbers that they had previously, maybe just matchup wise against the guy that they brought in versus the hitter. But I feel like analytics, kind of like you said, it's kind of getting to a point where maybe it's a little too analytically driven. But I mean, with the new hire and Tony La Russa, I feel like kind of an old school coach. He would be less likely to make that analytical call and be more likely to trust his guys, which I'm definitely excited about.
Yeah, I can definitely see Tony La Russa doing that. Definitely a more old school type of manager. Well, Garrett, I really appreciate you for coming on my show. I wish you the best of luck in your training for next season. Hopefully, I can see you guys and the White Sox come to Fenway with fans sometime soon.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for having me.
Yep, have a good one, man.